So, guys, we are officially live. I'm super excited to be back with you another Monday to bring our candid, crucial community conversations. And as I said earlier in the post, as you can see, this is the mental health edition, should I say healthcare edition or profession. I'm just looking to see if we are posted so that we can get some people tuned in with us. So yes, we are super excited to actually facilitate this conversation tonight. We have some amazing mental health professions with us. We're actually going to give folks a few seconds to tune in before I actually turn over the floor to you ladies to introduce yourselves. I'm actually going to invite a few people to join us, as well as if you all would share as well, that would be awesome. Looks like we have some people coming in. I'm just excited to be back on here this Monday just to gain some information from you both, Miss Brittany, as well as you, Miss Omika, to share as it relates to the social sensitivity so that people understand that mental health. The individuals that have mental health or battle with various issues, that this conversation is definitely crucial, is definitely needed. And of course, from what I take from you both, we are just going to be transparent tonight and just share what it is that we need to discuss, like what's much needed to be said. So, for those that do not know me, I am your host, Shay Speaks. I'm super excited to have with us tonight Miss Brittany Jennings, all the way from North Carolina. She is a LCSA. She's going to talk more about her credentials in just a moment. And Miss Omika Jackson, right here from Dorchester County, Cambridge, Maryland, who is an LCPCS. And she's going to talk more about her credentials as well. So at this time, I'm going to step out of the way, give Miss Brittany the opportunity to introduce herself first.
Hello, good evening, everyone. My name is Brittany Jennings, and I am a licensed clinical addiction specialist. I am a graduate of North Carolina Central University, and I have a master's degree in mental health counseling. I currently work in community mental health right now in Vance County, and I'm also a mobile crisis clinician. So I kind of work several days out the week on call. Um, Usually my normal hours from 5 p.m. to 7 a.m. And I love it. This is my passion. This is what I love to do. I started off as a teacher. Yeah, that was just a start. But I love working with all populations. Like I don't have a specific population that I work with. Considering community mental health is based on the referrals that we get and who we come across. So I just love people, working with people and understanding and being a listening ear, and trying to help revamp and get others on the right track as well. And I'm advocate for mental health because this is real and it's much needed. And I'm so happy that it is talked about more often. I hate that it took for certain things to transpire for it to be talked about and discussed and appreciated. But the time is now, and I think mental health, this is just so important for everyone. Whether you have an addiction, whether you don't have an addiction, whether you feel like you're fine, or whether you know that you haven't been fine in a long time. I'm so glad that we're people are starting to open up more and address what has been pushed under the rug for so many years.
Yes. Miss Omika is ready. She's like, tag me in. I'm ready. We are here. I'm here for it. So I'm gonna go ahead and give Miss Omika the opportunity to introduce herself now.
So I am Omika Jackson. I am the founder and CEO of Harvesting Hope Youth and Family Wellness, which is a youth and family behavioral health agency as well as youth and family development. So not only do we do behavioral health, we also do mentoring and a literacy program as well as a youth job training program and a partnership with two other agencies that teach African American youth how to sail, which is called the Underground Railroad Freedom Regatta. That's here in Dorchester County. Um, I love what I do. I mean, Brittany, 100%. I love what I do. I can't see myself doing anything else outside of some of my hobby stuff because I love my pictures and writing and things like that. But I love working with children, and youth in general, in the families. I like working with the global individual, so it's not just the that individual with that problem. I want to work with the whole person. So we do a whole person, whole family approach to services as best we can. We do a lot of advocacy, a lot of work. We destigmatize the mental health, especially in the African American community. That's something we still kind of struggle with. I am happy to see that more of us are going to therapy and to talk about our stuff, but trauma is real. Life issues are real, and sometimes it's hard to be vulnerable, to go and talk to somebody about your stuff. And I'm a therapist, and I'm one of those therapists that promote, if you're a therapist, you need to be in therapy as well. And I go to therapy, right? I see my therapist faithfully, especially now with all the stuff that's going on, from the injustice that's happening, the COVID situation, and then just, my dad was sick and all this other stuff. That's just way too much for an individual to try to handle. And so I'm like, I'm a walking testimony to, like, you need to go sit down and talk to somebody. And I believe everybody needs therapy, because there are so many transitions in life. Even if you don't have trauma, you have transitions. And we struggle with transitions a lot of times. And you need somebody to talk to, even if it's just for 6 weeks or 8 weeks. I just believe everybody needs to have that person that they can go talk to and get stuff off of their chest and be given the insight and the holding that they need to just be able to process the stuff that they're going through.
Thank you so much, Ms. Omika and Ms. Brittany, for again accepting the opportunity to come on this platform to share some of your expertise with our audience. For those that are live with us, please feel free to post in the comments your feedback, any questions you may have for our panelists tonight, because again, this platform is to again educate community as well as to raise awareness within our communities as it relates to resources and things we should be addressing in order to overcome barriers to again build, engage community. So Ms. Omika, you tapped on so much that we want to discuss tonight. I just want to say first, a big portion of the reason that I have been just so intentional about getting various speakers, not just from Maryland, not just from Dorchester County, is because the reality is our nation is suffering now. It's not a Maryland thing. It's not a North Carolina thing. We are suffering as a nation. And the reality is, until we get back to community engaging one another in our local communities, we will not see the change that we really hope to see in the nation. So I'm just excited to have you, Miss Omika, right here from Dorchester County, as well as you, Miss Brittany, all the way from North Carolina with us tonight, specifically because it shows that it does not matter where you live, it doesn't matter what state or what county or where you come from. These issues are within our community, and we have to have these conversations. So as you were saying, Miss Omika, right now we're dealing with a lot. We're dealing with a lot in our nation, in our local communities, from the social injustice, not just with police brutality, but a lot of these social injustices were actually happening way before COVID-19, way before some of the national outbreak of protests that have been recently happening within the various states and communities. So one of the things are the goal for me tonight is to increase social sensitivity. So to give community an understanding that people are just not out, protesting that's leading to some of the rioting, some of the looting, just because they want to be ignorant. But sometimes people really need a greater understanding of behavioral health, mental health issues that a person may be dealing with, or some of that trauma that individuals have not gone to counseling to seek a therapist or a counselor to work through. So I guess my first question to you ladies, again, the social injustice goes beyond police brutality. So I guess where I want to start tonight is discussing some of the mental health disparities. I mean, mean, it's a double loaded question, but I want to break it down into bite sized pieces so that we can converse and walk through this. So let's talk about some of the mental health disparities as a whole prior to COVID-19, prior to the national outbreak in terms of the various protests. And I guess we will start with you, Miss Omika, and then we'll go right to you, Miss Brittany.
Okay. So the disparities, whew, where don't they start, I guess, because they're so vast. There, I think for me, the thought process is that it begins with having therapists that look like us as our therapists, and not that we can be the only one to see clients that look like us, but having more of us. We are about 4% of the mental health profession. African Americans are about 4% of the mental health profession. And so, because of that, you have people who will not go to therapy because, unfortunately, systemic racism has played a huge role in trust and misdiagnosis. African Americans are typically more likely to be given a more pathological diagnosis. Our symptoms look different than the typical white middle class male that most of the symptoms are based off of. So it's not even based off of like middle class white women. A lot of the symptoms are based off of middle class white males. So even if we start looking at symptomology, it's not even adding up because it's not based on people of color. It is based on middle class, educated white male and how he would um, behave due to whatever diagnosis that's in a DSM-4. The other part is access. So having the resources right there within the community where you can get to the therapist. So we're in a rural area, transportation is an issue. So how many people can really get to therapy? And then a lot of the agencies are closing at 5 when people got to work till 5. And so that, forces people to either leave work to go to their therapy or just not get treatment. Then the other caveat to that is most people don't have a career where they can take off from work during the work day to go to therapy or any other appointment. So they're just not going to go because they don't want to be penalized for missing work, and it's their mental health. Um, from like for me, racism is a mental health crisis. It's a pandemic. It impacts people behavioral health, but it also impacts your physical health. The amount of stress that you have to experience when you go into a workplace and you're the only one, or there's macroaggressions. Your child is being mistreated in school solely based on the color of their skin. You're being denied a job based solely on the color of your skin. Those things are impactful. And to me, it's like racism is almost like the silent killer. We see so much of the blatant part of it, but we don't see the behavioral health and the physical side effects of it that really impacts the individual's ability to thrive. And so you get the anger, you get the depression, you get the self-medicating that could be drinking, drugs, sex, shopping, eating. Addiction is not just about drugs and alcohol. Sometimes people get confused on that. So and Brittany will probably talk more on that, where people think when somebody says they're an addiction counselor, people tend to think it's all about substance use, but it's more than just substance use. People get addicted to exercise and everything else. And so you're not dealing with those issues. Even church, right? So I'm gonna go to church and I'm gonna show up every day because I got to get my spiritual journey on, but then I'm not addressing the real issues that's causing conflict in my life. And then feeling heard and validated. Because when people say that something occurred to them that was based on race, Black people are willing to support it. But, typically our European friends and family members, may not necessarily believe it to be true, or you're being overly sensitive, or that's not what the person meant, and things like that. And so then you start to question, like, well, was it really racist? Or I'm just not going to say anything because I'm you're victim shaming, so then there's that level of shame that's attached to it. And so it's so prevalent and ignored. And for Black people, they're not likely to talk to their white therapist about the racism that they experience, because they're not going to believe that this person get it. Like, they're white, they're not going to get it. And that's not necessarily true. You have some white therapists who 100% get it, and they're going to advocate and they're going to fight for you. But then there are those who really don't. I'm a part of some of these, therapy groups, and some of the stuff that you see, and you're like, oh, you're somebody's therapist? How is that possible? And it's blatant. It's really blatant. So it's just layers and layers and layers, down to children having anxiety and it's misdiagnosed as ADHD. Um, or a child has some trauma and it's straight ADHD. So we don't want to talk about the trauma. We don't want to talk about the anxiety or the depression. We want to straight label a child with ADHD, and you're not the therapist labeling. So you don't have the skill set to actually do that. And it happens, more so than I would care to talk about. It's sad and ineffective, and it does more harm.
Yes, absolutely, Ms. Omika. Thank you so much. It is a lot of disparities within the mental health profession, and to try to gaze one would probably be almost impossible to do over the next hour. So, Ms. Brittany, I just want to have you to chime in as well to that question.
Okay. So, like you stated, it was disparities prior to all of the pandemic and social injustice that's been ongoing, but now it's back up on across the TV screens right now. But like what you stated, I like what you stated, Ms. Jackson, when you stated that people want to have therapists that look like them, across the board. Because I mean, easily you want someone that you feel like can understand and can relate. And I also work in a rural area where transportation is very limited. If you don't have medical insurance, then a lot of things you don't fit the criteria for. If you don't have children, you can't really get the proper housing. You can't get food and nutritional services if you don't have kids. You're looked at like, well, why can't you just get up and go get a job type thing? And there's so much more to it. A lot of people apply for disability and get denied that really need the disability, unable to work, and it's not a lot of job opportunities that are around that a lot of people can do sometimes that kind of struggle with mental. And then the facilities that are available to them, no one knows about. So it's like you kind of got to pick and pry. I don't know who you know that connect you with this person that may know someone that knows someone that, oh, it's a facility right next door to your house that does this. And you're looking like, who would have ever known? No one said this. There aren't any flyers in the paper. There aren't any bulletin board, billboards going around. If there's something posted at a facility, it's usually tacked on to a little board at like social service place or a building that no one normally pays attention to. So it's not really promoted as much. So resources are very limited in the area that we're in. I can't speak for your area. Very limited. A lot of people have transportation to their doctor's appointments. Sometimes, like with us doing telehealth, calling and talking with people doing video chat, some people don't know how to use it, so they don't get the full potential of therapy. Um, Home may not be a safe place for someone to kind of talk to. So if you normally come to therapy once a week, therapy was your outlet, now you're home. And it's like you can't really get the full experience right now because the person that may have caused the trauma is now sitting right next to you in the other room, hearing everything that you're saying, right? So that's kind of the ongoing now. But previously, I would say, just like you stated before, being labeled. A lot of youth are being labeled. African American are being labeled. Youth kids, like you said, with ADHD and ODD. Oppositional
Mhm.
defiant disorder is something that I'm seeing a lot of. And as we all know, there isn't really a medication for ODD. They kind of will, most people are diagnosed with ODD and ADHD. And so someone kind of overheard someone say that describe ODD as a term is like a child that's kind of stuck in their terrible tubes, but have matured, grown up a little bit. That was something someone said to me before. And I was like, wow, okay.
Mhm.
And they're just labeled as bad. Um, I've had so many clients, well, not necessarily clients, people that I've come across that have had kids that have dealt with a lot of trauma, have been in the system, had several foster parents, more than we could imagine. So, of course, the transition, like you stated, can cause trauma because we don't know what that child may have endured that led to them going into the foster care system. We don't know what they've endured while in a particular family that switched them to another one. We don't know. And once we all kind of come to grasp that everyone doesn't display their trauma the same way as we would expect, like the adult will kind of show trauma as, they may suffer from PTSD, become very timid, very anxious, fearful, on edge, nightmares, all of those. Kids don't always express that. It could be more so anger. They could be throwing chairs, punching holes in the wall, harming themselves, threatening to harm other people. Kind of like I use the analogy like a turtle. Once a turtle becomes fearful of their environment, they draw back in. They isolate themselves. They may come out, they might stick a head out, they may come out just a little bit and they may move very, very, very slow. But one wrong move and they're back in. So you rarely ever catch a turtle all body parts outside of the until they really feel comfortable. But who can feel comfortable in an environment when the environment changes up so much? So I view it as, they're coping and dealing with life, their life, to the best way they know how. So whatever by any means necessary. If I feel threatened or if I feel unsafe, I'm gonna make you feel afraid before I'm gonna make you fearful of me before I become fearful of you. And that can be with school, home, friends, family, strangers, anywhere. So I feel like, and I think I kind of got a little bit off topic, Miss Shay, but yeah, disparities, like you said, there's so much to it, and I can go on and on for days. And the labeling is unheard of, um, and I think misdiagnosing is unheard of. And something I always say is that Black women sometimes often get called, "You must be bipolar, you tripping today," like the moodiness and all of that. Like, no, that's not even what bipolar is. So it's
Yeah.
so broad, and I believe there's categories for all type: men, women, kids, African American, all ethnicities. I feel like it's a lot more education could be put out about this.
Yeah.
So yes, absolutely. I appreciate both of your perspectives. Specifically, going into the next question is just considering the recent chain of events from COVID-19 to all of the national protests that are happening throughout the nation. The question was going to be, how have these events attributed to some of these disparities? Brittany, you already been tap dancing on it. I mean, you're talking about someone actually trying to facilitate their therapy session in a home where the person that they're in therapy for may be sitting in the next room. That was real, really, really real. And a lot of this is not being considered. So I guess, to kind of spin off that question, not just how have the recent events attributed to the disparities for you both in the profession, have you been seeing an incline or decline in some of your telehealth services since COVID-19, since this pandemic? And I guess we'll go with Brittany first.
Okay. I would say it's kind of a balance between the two. My clients that have transportation issues are loving it because they don't have to worry about wondering who's going to get them to therapy. They don't have to worry about, how will I get there? Who's going to take me home? Do I have money to pay them for gas? Who's going to do this? How am I going to? So it works out really good for these people, this group of people who don't have transportation. But for my clients that home is not the safest place for them to be at, it kind of sucks a little bit. So what I kind of incorporated was that I kind of give out, we email. So I've always let it be known, hey, shoot me an email if this is not the best time to talk. So one made particular text and email me and say, hey, he's here today. I'm still going to talk to you, but just go with me. So we kind of do a lot of reading between the lines a little bit. And then maybe like the following week, I'll go back and say, okay, so let's talk about that. Let's dig a little deep. Are you able to talk now? She'll say, yeah. It could be something as much as them going outside. However, it seems to us like, oh, just go walk outside or just go to the bathroom, lock the door. But if you're in especially a domestic violence relationship, that person doesn't necessarily want to take their eyes off of you. So you going to the bathroom, they could be at the door listening right there. You going outside, they could be upset. Why are you leaving? Why are you leaving me? Why do you have to go out there and talk to her? What are you telling her that you can't tell in front of me? Which can open up a bigger can of worms. So the goal is to make the client feel safe. I'm providing resources and I'm communicating ways as best as I can with you. So email is kind of the place that I really understand. Okay, well she was talking a little slow today. Is everything okay? Or when I asked her a question, she kind of didn't respond to the question. If I may say, hey, how's everything been going? And you start talking loud, you just pick up on the signs. Everything's been going great today. Thanks for asking. I already know. Okay, that's a red flag for me. Something's going on, and we can't really talk about it right now. So you don't want to end the conversation too soon to make it seem like a little sketchy. You still keep checking and doing, picking and prying best you can, but also understanding. Okay, this is not a safe place right now. We don't want to make matters worse. So I just continue to provide resources that's in the community for her and or him, and just do the best we can with that. So I think it's kind of been a balance. Like sometimes getting new clients, and like you say, the clients that work 8 to 5. Sometimes I have a lot of clients that want to talk during lunch break. But out of 5 days out of the week, lunch break, the session is kind of filled up for the most part. So people are really trying to do the best they can with what they have. You have to work, you have to be at home, you have kids. When school was going on, you had morning times were dedicated to school. So it's like kind of just figuring out, learning as you go. And we don't have all the answers, trial and error. One week I might see you at 3, one week I need to see you at 9. You have to be flexible and just do the best that you can. So.
That's it. Yeah. I agree with Brittany 100%. You have to be flexible, and you should know your client situation to know what's safe and what's not safe, to talk about, and if it's a safe environment, because a child can't really talk about what's happening with them, especially if it has something to do with some conflict with a parent. So now the parent want to pop in and take over the session and make it about them. And so it's like, well, I'm not even going to say nothing because they're listening, or they're going to take over my session. And having to be creative as well, so my population is mainly children. So how to do play therapy with children, keeping them engaged, and even instead of doing the full 45-minute sessions, maybe doing a 35-minute session. So a lot of therapists kind of was upset, was like, oh, we can only do 30 minutes because we can't keep the child attention for that long online. Well, then guess what? You have a whole nother day of the week if possible. And if not, that's okay too, because you got to see the child. And sometimes it can't be about the bottom line of the dollar. It has to be the bottom line of what's ethical and in the best interest of your client. Um, Seeing people at 8 o'clock in the morning because they have to be seen before the children wake up so they're not disrupted. Um, Parents giving the children space to make sure that their child can talk about what it is that they need to talk about. And so you have just as many parents and individuals making sure they have their safe space as you have those who could care less about that safe space. For our agency, we did lose some clients because some of the parents, wasn't as necessarily invested in their child's health, mental health. They were being seen at school. And so I don't want to be bothered, right? And then you have the other part of, well, I got to go to work, and my phone is the only access to the internet that they would have, and I can't leave my phone at home for my child to have therapy. As much as I know they need it, I can't do that, or there's nobody in the house with them to make sure that they will get logged on and things like that. And so sometimes it's so easy for providers and systems to believe the worst out of people. but sometimes the circumstances that's just not going to allow them to do what we think is the easiest thing to do, which is hop online. Brittany was 100% correct. Some people don't know how to navigate the internet. They don't want to either, right? They really don't want to have to learn how to use something else. And COVID has just exacerbated their mental health issues because now I have my standing appointment. I could go and talk to my therapist about whatever it is that I needed to do. And now there's a monkey wrench. Um, and I don't feel comfortable having a session online because I don't trust that nobody's going to hack in and invade my
Mhm.
privacy. Um, or I don't have the bandwidth to be able to do it. And I'm not sure, Brittany, where you're at, but here
Oh yeah.
we're so rural and we don't have high speed anything. So everything is glitchy and things like that. And so I know for the first 2 weeks or 3 weeks when all of this happened, there was interruption after interruption because people were working from home, school stuff was happening, and therapy. And so you were getting booted out. And there goes that rapport building of getting comfortable with this new transition and your client needing to talk about certain things. Now I don't even want to talk about it because I'm so bothered. And I know as a therapist, I was the same way. It was like, oh, this is ridiculous. Like my client can't even express what they need to express because there's an interruption of service. And so, quality of service isn't just about the quality that the therapist has to bring in this safe space, but it's also the quality of service over the internet or telephonically, because I know in the state of Maryland, because of these issues in the rural area, they did go ahead and allow telephonic use to be deemed okay and ethical. However, for me, I would like for teletherapy to continue for people because we have people that live in our area. The county is so wide. We have people that's down in the Hoopers Island in the Neck District that would have to drive an hour up just for therapy and then drive an hour back home because there is no resources down in that area. Um, so I think it should kind of be a case by case thing where it is acceptable and allowable for individuals, even for those who have transportation issues. Um, In-home services kind of have to change. There were a lot of agencies that were doing in-home therapy who really can't do in-home therapy with these individuals no more because of the safety of going from house to house. And also, we all know we got some clients just don't adhere to following instructions, and they're gonna do what they want. They're gonna have people at their house, and you can't bring those people to your office space, and you can't go into their homes anymore because it's just not safe because of either where they work at or just that, rules. What's that? I don't understand those things. And we have to be conscious of it. Well.
Wow, great input from you both. I think that's a lot to consider for those that are viewing, just to have that understanding because a lot of people, again, they really don't understand how the mental health community within themselves are suffering, even during a time such as this. I believe that COVID-19 and this pandemic has really given us the opportunity to see how versatile we can be in a matter of seconds, right? A lot of, prior to COVID 19, some of these suggestions were made. Well, what about this and what about that? And it was almost as if it was foreign or, oh no, we can't do that. That's against policy, that's against procedure. But now it was almost as if COVID 19 and this pandemic has forced the hand to really speak to some of the disparity. So I would also desire to see that once this pandemic is over, once we are beyond COVID-19, that we'll still be able to have this versatile perspective to be able to provide services to those that don't have the transportation, for those that cannot get off from work to attend therapy session, but can take their lunch break and go in their car and have that session because it's needed, right? Is there anything else? I do want to put Renita Timberlake says, "Great job, ladies. Such needed information." So I just want you all to know that what we're discussing tonight is just not us talking and us wasting our time. There are people that are watching us. Some people are, like Miss Renita, she commented, but some people are just kind of just tuning in and just listening to the information that we are presented. And we do appreciate each of you for watching, each of you for sharing out this broadcast, and for those that are actually engaging in this conversation. If you have comments, if you have questions, please, please, please feel free to post them. I know Miss Omika, as well as you, Brittany, you have shared out the stream. If you're seeing that people are commenting and I can't see their comments for whatever reason, please bring them to my attention so that we can address any questions that any of your friends may have that I'm not able to see as well. So I guess we'll just continue right there. I mean, as I just said, COVID-19 has allowed us to almost flip the switch, right? We've probably been asking, can we do this? Can we do that? To our state delegates, to, just really understanding that we had these disparities within our local communities. We knew in the community that there were many individuals that needed to take advantage of services that your offices offer, but were not able to do so for various reasons. I know even now, as Ms. Omika shared, COVID-19 still presents its own barriers. However, we are seeing people that once before were not able to take advantage of actually getting therapy or attending therapy. We're seeing some of them come from behind, come from the woods and say, yes, I can finally see a therapist. I can finally talk to someone to get through some of these underlying issues that I have never addressed as a child. And now I'm an adult and I'm finding myself responding quickly out of my emotions because there's trauma that has been triggered that I've never dealt with. So let's just talk to that statement alone. What about the trauma that individuals have never dealt with, that they don't even really understand how that trauma is affecting them in their adult life? So I guess we'll start with Amika, Miss Omika.
All right. So, oh, trauma, how I love thee. So, I don't know not one person who has not had some form of trauma. Um, I think we live in a society where we don't necessarily talk enough about it because it still seems like to be a taboo thing. Like, and we love to tell people, like, get over it. Like, oh, you still dwelling on that. Oh, that happened so long ago. There are stages that we have to get through unscathed, or if we have had issues within those stages, we need to be able to process and heal. If not, we're stuck there emotionally, right? And so I love to tell people all the time, you might be talking to somebody 35, but emotionally they may be 8. Because their emotional age is totally different from their chronological age, right? And so wherever the trauma hit, that's where they're at emotionally. So if you've been hit by a car, if you've experienced domestic violence, if you've been bullied, um, if your house caught on fire, just those things, then guess what? Whatever age that stuff happened to you, that's where you're at, unless you did, your parents put you in therapy and your therapist actually walked you through the process of healing. I think what a lot of times people also think is that to do the healing work from trauma, that I have to name the trauma. A good trauma therapist won't have you talk about the trauma to heal you. You don't ever have to mention it to heal from it. It's all about learning what it is that you're feeling, and how long you're going to hold on to that stuff. And for a lot of us, if we let the trauma go, then it means it didn't happen, right? And so then if I let it go, it means it didn't happen. Some people are kind of addicted to the anger and the pain. that's attached to it or the narrative. They love to just retell that story. So that's how you know that the person is still stuck in it because they're telling that story over and over again. And you're like, okay, how many times you gonna tell me the same story? I know what happened. You need to go talk to somebody about it, right? Um, it's triggering. You can be watching TV and something might come on and trigger a memory you never knew existed. A smell can trigger it. A touch can trigger it. And so one thing that we talk about as therapists is like, don't touch people without asking their permission because you don't know what somebody's done to them that might send them back or make them become violent or belligerent and things like that. And so we have to be very conscious and clear of that. The other part is own your stuff, right? I know as a parent, and my kids are like, oh God, here she go. As a parent, I know I've said some things and done some things that was not right, right? Out of anger, not knowing, frustration that could have scarred my kids. And I don't have a problem with apologizing and say, oh, mommy done said some things and done some things that you probably need to go to therapy for. So you're not taking that into your next relationship. So many parents can't have that conversation, right? It's like, well, if I say that I'm a bad parent, no, it just means that you're human and you may have handled a situation wrong. And it may have scarred your child in a way that you don't even like you don't even realize that that was something that could have scarred your child. And so I'm one believe that you should apologize. Two, don't have family secrets. Like these are some of the things that you need to talk about. And we tend to protect the adult more than we protect the child, right? We want to, oh, we're gonna let them handle it. We're gonna let them, figure it out when CPS should have been called a long time ago. And I'm one to believe whether you're a family or friend, if you do something you have no business doing to your child, well, you already know if CPS show up, it was probably me who made the phone call. Don't get comfortable with me to think that that stuff is okay. One, I'm a mandated reporter. I'm not going to lose my license for you. And then right is right, right? Right is right. And it's about breaking family, unhealthy traditions because this is what my family did. Like my family didn't allow us to talk about things, so we don't talk about it. The other part of the trauma is not having the emotional education, right? So I call it emotional illiteracy. So most of us don't have the knowledge, the words, and the understanding of emotions. And that's traumatic in and of itself because if I can't express myself, I tend, well, not me in general, but people, if people can't express themselves, they get violent, they get angry. Watch a 2-year old who has a hard time explaining or expressing themselves. What happened? That goes through life. If you don't feel heard, if I can't get it out, then it's going to show up in my behavior because I don't have the words to do it. So it's so many levels to trauma. And what I might consider traumatic for me may not be traumatic for you because everybody's threshold is totally different. And I did crisis counseling as well. And I remember like I was like, oh my God, like somebody would consider this traumatic. It is because for them, it's the straw that broke the camel's back because all of this other stuff has happened. And here's that one more thing. And so the person who don't know is like, oh my God, they're overreacting. It's not that serious. But for them, it's literally that serious because it's one thing after another, and they can no longer emotionally take it, spiritually take it, or physically take it. So trauma is not something to be played with, and it's very serious. It impacts the physical health as well as the mental health.
Okay, Brandy, right over to you.
Okay. Trauma, like you stated, everything that you stated was real. It's real and it's not talked about. There are so many times where you hear people that didn't think what they experienced was a trauma until it came on TV, until a movie came on, or until someone said something that made them think like that. I've been through the same thing and I thought that was okay. So I feel like a lot of people may have dealt with trauma. Some may have experienced trauma. I'm sorry, experienced trauma, and a population of that aren't aware that they did what they experienced was trauma. They
Mhm.
weren't aware that what happened to them wasn't normal, especially if you grew up in a home where it was happening repetitively. You seen it happen to your sisters, your brothers, your cousins, your aunts, your uncles, your grand. It's like generational. So in your eyes, if that's all that you see, that's not trauma. That's just how we do things, right? So until people or until they realize or learn or accept or own or whatever word you want to put in that sentence there, until they come to grasp that this is not normal, this is trauma, then
Mhm.
healing can begin. But it's not until you recognize that and accept it that it did happen. And I mean, of course, I don't mean to say that too lightly, as if it was you just accepting something very light. I'm not trying to minimize that at all. But until you come to grasp with what has happened and understand that this was a traumatic experience and this was not supposed to happen, then that's when you
Mhm.
can soon begin to talk about it. Then that's when you can understand, well, that's why I respond the way I do when certain situations happen like that. That's why whenever I watch Lifetime, I get timid. That's why every time I hear someone yelling, whether they're yelling at me or around me, I freeze up. That's why whenever I'm in a car, I'm pressing the brakes, I'm pressing the brakes, I'm holding on to the side of the door because I was in a bad car accident. Um, that's why whenever I go to the hospital, I don't like to and I'm just throwing out different scenarios, right? That's whenever I go to the hospital, I don't want to be touched. Don't touch me right there. Don't stand behind me. There can't be any space between me and the door. My back can't be to the door. I need to see the whole room. So many different things that um people learn to adapt in life with. Like some people don't like surprises. Don't come up and boo me. Like that could send someone off, fly them off the head edge for real because you don't know what that boo might have done to them years ago, that shake, that try to scare you type thing. To some people it's funny. To some people that is you messed them up for a while, right? So trauma is so real. And I run a group where when we were open, I had a group titled Seeking Safety. I love that group. And that's just a group designed for women. Well, my group is just women only, but of course it can be for men and women. And there's one for kids as well. But the group that I conduct is just for women. And it's for women who have dealt with some form of trauma and use substances. Because a lot of times people cope with drugs. I can't sleep. I'm
Mhm.
numbing the pain. Marijuana didn't do it. I'm going on to something else. That didn't do it. I need something stronger. I can't keep thinking about this. I'm not sleeping. I'm not eating. This is the only way that I can function is if I'm high. The only time that I don't think about this is if I'm high or if I'm drunk. And I don't want to think about what happened to me because it's too painful. Nobody believes me. Nobody is doing anything about it. They're feeling this person come around here. They look at me like I'm the one that did something wrong, like it's my fault. So the best thing that I can do is go be with my friends and we go get high or we go get drunk. And I always say this in my groups, like no one wakes up one day and say, when I grow up, I'm going to do drugs. There's usually something that may have triggered it, whether it was an experiment that you liked,
Mhm.
whether it was numbing your pain, whether it was just for fun and you got hooked on it slowly but surely, whatever it was, whether it was introduced to you by a friend, forced on you by a friend, whatever it is, no one wakes up, grows up and says, when I grow up, I'm going to be addicted to drugs or sex
That's right.
or gambling. No one says that. No one says that. That's not a goal that you put down when you're drawing in kindergarten. When I grow up, I want to be blah 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 blah. There's usually something that has triggered this, brought this about, whether it was just for fun or not. And then a lot of times people don't even think that they have an addiction. Oh, I'm not addicted. Like the common thing that we go back and forth about that everyone does. Marijuana. Is it an addiction? Is it not? Is it good for you? Is it bad for you? Whatever it is, like this conversation go on for days, right? Some people feel like they don't have an addiction. If you can't, can you go without it? When you don't have it, what happens to you? When you can't get it and don't know when the next time you'll get it, how does your body feel? And like I said, that could be for any substance, not that can be with a cigarette, tell you the truth, a cigarette, a cigar, a beer, whatever the substance may be, sex, gambling, spending money, exercising, not eating, whatever it is. If you feel like you have an addiction or unsure if you have an addiction, Google what it means to have an addiction. Determine how your body feels when you don't get it. Caffeine, that is a strong addiction. Like, of course, you experience withdrawal. If you drink a Mountain Dew every single day, that one day you don't get that Mountain Dew, how does your body feel? Headache, tired, fatigue, whatever it is. So it's just something to think about how broad addictions really are. And it's not just limited, like you said, Miss Shay and Miss Jackson. Um, it's not just drugs and alcohol. It's so much more to it. And it's sometimes trauma that can be used as a coping mechanism to deal with trauma. Um, and just how people learn to go on throughout their day. Like I can't get up and start my day without a beer. And you have people that do that every single day. That go to work, live regular lives, and that's how they function. So trauma can spur off. It's like a tree. You're rooted, and then you got different branches. So you have you're coping either way, whether good or bad. You have those. You have family and friends that you talk to. You have people that know, people that don't know. You have people that look down on you, people that think the world of you. It's so broad. It's like a tree that's rooted up, and it just keeps growing and growing and growing. But if you don't pop off the right limbs, and don't keep the right limbs, then your tree can eventually like droop over. But you want that tree to continue to be lifted up, right? So you have to learn which branch is the pull, which branch is the key, and realizing that you have to let it run its course. I always tell my clients that what you're experiencing didn't happen to you overnight. Therefore, you can't expect your healing or the process to happen overnight.
Right. Yeah.
That was good. That was good. It didn't happen to you overnight, so you can't expect the healing or the process to happen overnight. That was so good.
Exactly.
This conversation could go on a lot longer than an hour. And if I be very transparent with you, I got to tell you that Miss Omika was one of I got to say, she is one of the people that I look to as a role model. I am completed my first degree in behavioral health, and that was my associate's. And I'm actually in school now to finish my undergrad in psychology with a minor in political science, specifically because of a conversation I had with Miss Omika. And not just that conversation, but also the advocacy that I find myself doing on a day-to-day basis. I enjoy advocating. I enjoy bringing forward these types of conversation to to inform and to educate community, because you have so many people, as you say, as well as myself. I was once one of those people that would say, "Get over it. You still dealing with that? You still dwelling on that?" Not even really having an understanding or being able to be socially sensitive to what someone else was going through or what someone had going on. And just being able to go through my own process, it has taught me a lot. And one of the things that, we're talking about trauma, and again, the forum is Candid, Crucial Community Conversations. So we're being candid. I know for me, I had issues in my past, in my childhood, in which I did not classify as trauma. It was just like you said, Brittany, just like you said, Miss Omika. I didn't see it as dysfunctional because I grew up and it was very functional. And I learned to operate in a dysfunctional environment functionally. So as I was actually doing my intern, I was sitting at my intern and literally had a godly encounter. And I say this very transparent. I had a godly encounter where it was almost as if I seen myself within myself in operation. And it really wasn't a good sight to see. I mean, I seen myself cursing at my kids. I seen myself just flying off the deep end. And these were all things that I dealt with in my childhood being raised. And it was as if God was showing me these things to let me know, number one, your children no longer sees your correction as mommy loves me, but they see it as mommy hates me. So what I thought was helping my children, what I thought in the way that I thought to discipline them, what I thought was working, it was actually creating a hatred within them. Neither one of them came out and ever said to me, "Mommy, I hate you. I don't like you. You're mean." They never vocalized those things. And I'm grateful to God that they did not. However, because I don't know what I would have done. The truth of the matter is, we can say what we won't do until we're actually put in that situation. So I don't know what I would have done, but I'm grateful that they never did that. However, I'm also grateful for the awareness to be able to be woke up in that aspect, to go and apologize to my kids, to also change my behavior. So the cursing became something that I utilized as an outlet. And it was crazy because I used to pray all the time. This is terrible. This is not becoming of me as a woman, a mom, nor an adult. Like, God, you got to take this away from me. And I got to be honest, it was a process, but it did not take as long as I thought it would take because I was cursing for over 30 years. So for me, for it to leave the way that it did, and to hear my twin daughter at 5 say to her father, "Mommy, don't say those words." It just, to me, it just done my heart good because it's been almost 3 years, and I don't curse at them. I don't yell at them. I may speak loudly to them, but I don't do it at them. Because I'm learning that there's a difference between talking to someone, talking at someone, and talking with someone. So now I try to talk with my children to get an understanding so that they also get an understanding as well. So this has been so good. This has just been so good. So I guess in wrapping up, one of the things that both of you have agreed to is that the African American community, they desire to have therapists that look like them. You also can probably agree that some African Americans also don't want to talk to a therapist that look like them because sometimes, if we be transparent and very candid, sometimes some of our people get in a position of power and they totally forget that they had to overcome trauma. They totally forget that they were once in a situation where they did not have the means or the resources or the money to be able to do or live the life that they're living. So, my question, or in closing, how would you ladies encourage, or what encouragement would you give to someone that's interested in becoming a therapist? And I guess we'll go with Miss Omika.
I would say take the psychology class, take some of the basic psychology classes. Um, you see what that. But I would
We
also
have a lot of feedback from you, Miss Omika.
I was ready to say, did y'all hear that? Can you hear me
Yeah,
better?
we hear you better.
Okay, I don't know what that is. Okay, I don't know what that is.
It sounds
Um,
like a fan or some type of vent.
yeah, no fan. I don't even have nothing going on. I don't know what the hell. You know what? Let me
Okay,
see.
we can hear you.
Okay, so I would say also go work for a crisis center. You need to go work for a crisis center. Start on them phones, intake or something like that, because you'll get a better understanding of what the needs of the community are and why people go to get therapy. Um, it's not for crazy people. I tell people all the time, the crazy people don't get therapy. Somebody with schizophrenia who's getting their services, somebody that has bipolar that's going to therapy and taking their medication and doing all those things, that person isn't crazy because they're doing what they're supposed to be doing for their health, right? And it's understanding what mental health is and all that you can do. Mental health is just about being a therapist, it's about being an advocate, it's about doing policies, procedures, research, so much that you can do in this field that able to homework and decide what population or what's their niche going to be, find a mentor, and then move forward.
I don't know where that sound came all of a sudden from. So, Miss Brittany, what encouragement would you give to someone that's interested in becoming a therapist? I think, Miss Omika, that was some good insight. My intern was actually at the Mobile Crisis Center. So, one of the things that I found out, even while doing that intern, is that some people just want somebody to listen to them. That was something big that I really took away from that. Some people need therapy and they need to go on to see a therapist, but I seen that a lot of our calls were just someone that were going through an episode that particular night and they just needed someone to listen. So, Miss Brittany, what encouragement would you give someone that was interested in becoming a therapist?
I say go for it. It's very much needed. And being culturally competent is very important as well, because people want, like you said, someone that listens, someone that understands, and even if they don't understand, it's a lot of times they kind of you'll flock to your own ethnicity because you feel like they will understand whether they do or they don't. It's just something that, we as people do sometimes, right? But I think that I would recommend and I would encourage anyone to do it. I do community mental health, and I understand that's not for everybody. Some people, I have a lot of my classmates that just prefer private practice. Me, I like, this is the first position I've had in the mental health field, and I love it because I tell everyone, like, there's no better way to learn than to go full throttle and just kind of be put out there. Like, in mental health, you're subject to get someone with schizophrenia, um, ADHD, ODD, anxiety, depression, like everything that's been in that DSM-5, they are subject to walk in for an assessment. Whether they're your client or not, you're more than likely to do the assessment. And that kind of brought all those diagnoses to life out of the book to me. Like, I was able to see firsthand what it really meant when my professor said, whatever a symptom may be for anxiety or depression. It kind of brings it to life a little bit. Like, oh wow, this is really real. Something like schizophrenia. It's so different for everybody. Everyone doesn't look the same. Just like depression and anxiety, there's no set block square that everyone kind of fits inside of. It's very vague and very broad. It's different for everyone. And once you can grasp that and think outside of the box, then you'll better be able to understand and comprehend and help everyone, because there's no set puzzle, no piece there's no one specific cure. Take one of this will fix all. 2 therapy sessions, you got it. You go to 8 sessions and 2 group sessions and this and that, you got it. No, you have to learn your client individually on an individual basis, build that rapport, learn them,
Yeah.
their needs, their wants, their goals, their desires, their family history, their substance use history, sleeping, eating habits, social support, if they have any. Like, all of that holistically plays a part into someone's mental health. And until you can identify all those areas within that particular person, but you have to take your perspective out of it and see it from their world to really, really get a full picture of how it is portraying for them. And I mean, I'm with you, Miss Shay. A lot of things I didn't realize that I did or have said or have done to people, my kids, family members, relatives, what have you, until I kind of started studying a little bit more. And I was like, oh, wow. Ooh, mm. So once you start to study a little bit more, you really look at things a lot different. I find myself over analyzing a lot of things, like, don't say it like that. I shouldn't have said it like that. Or, like that. You really take a look at things differently, and you have to separate the fact that family is not always the client. So when they call to talk to you and tell you something, counselor Britt has to come out of it. But sometimes it's hard because you're just automatically thrown into that, So just really let this be something that you really want to do, that you're passionate about. It's just like going to school to be a nurse. If that's something that you don't want to do, don't do it. Don't hurt people. Don't. So you really have to be passionate about it to really understand. And it can get a little bit tricky, can be hectic, and you really have to check on your mental health in the midst of it, because dealing and taking on so much can become overwhelming at times. So knowing your limits and setting those boundaries is very important.
Well, that was all good. I thank you both. I want to just say I admire all the work that you're doing in your local communities. And I'll tell you that it's not just enough for me to say it. A lot of times, the mental health professions, mental health professionals, a lot of times, we say this is a thankless job, right? There is not enough money that you can make to even compare to what you pour out and what you give every single day. So from the bottom of my heart, I want to say thank you both, not just for coming on tonight to share your expertise and as well as your knowledge to the mental health profession, but I want to say thank you both for the hard work that you do every single day to help our community become whole and healthy and on a whole nother level. So thank you both. I'm super excited because, again, this conversation could go on for hours. So we definitely have to schedule you all to bring you back for a part two to speak specifically to community engagement. How can the community help enforce enforce conversation or enforce the awareness of mental health within the local community, even if you don't have the credentials to be a therapist, or if you don't have, different tools to provide someone what they need. How can the community be an advocate for the mental health profession? So we are definitely going to schedule that. Listen, for those that are watching, I appreciate you for tuning in with us another Monday for our Candid Crucial Community Conversations. I'm super, super excited that we are again expanding our network, and the various people that have spoken on this platform have said yes without hesitation. We've had some scheduling conflicts. However, Miss Omika and Miss Brittany, they have made their schedule readily available to share this platform with us tonight. So I'm excited about that and hoping that I can get you both back on with us. For those that have never viewed this broadcast before, we host these conversations every Monday at 7:30. We have had state, local delegates, as well as local activists on to speak to the importance of voting, to speak to the importance of just engaging in your local community, to even speak to some of the social injustice as it relates to the various races. We had a gentleman on from New Jersey who spoke about, white privilege and how he was so uninformed as it relates to the Black Lives Matter movement. So next week we will be back Monday at 7:30. We're going to have some of the local candidates here from Dorchester County who's running for office for specifically for school board that will be gracing us with their presence next week to speak about some of the injustice, as well as to speak about their platforms and how they intend to move our community forward if they are elected. So join us next Monday for that conversation as well. Again, Miss Brittany, Miss Omika, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. So if you all don't have anything else.
No,
Okay.
thank you for having us. Thank you. Thank you for
Oh,
reaching
you're
out.
so welcome. Thank you for saying yes. So if you all don't have anything else until next Monday, we love you all. Take care of yourselves. And remember, if you can't be a part of the solution, don't be a part of the problem. Remember, if you can't be a part of the solution, then don't attribute to the problem. And as always, we love you. We appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in with us, for lending us your hour and 10 minutes tonight. So have an amazing night, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.